go forward and turn that on. Thank you. And next slide, please. So we have a few different ways to make sure that this meeting is accessible tonight. We have an ASL interpreter, two in fact, who are with us this evening. If you need to view the ASL interpreter at all times, keep your view settings in gallery mode. That should be the default setting for Zoom. You can change this by clicking the button that says gallery mode in the top right of your screen. Gallery mode should show all the presenters together on the screen. It will also ensure that you can see the interpreter as well as the speaker. And I'd like to thank both Katie and Shannon who are with us this evening, who will be taking turns. Next, I would like to note that we are offering both Spanish and Mandarin interpretation this evening. And I'm going to offer up first to our Spanish language interpreter, Miguel, to share some words about entering our language rooms, which we will turn on at the end of our announcements. Go ahead, Miguel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Miguel Moreno, and I'm going to be the Spanish interpreter for this meeting. Buenas tardes con todos. Mi nombre es Miguel Moreno. Yo voy a ser el intérprete en español esta noche. Si usted necesita escuchar esta reunión en el idioma español, depende de cómo usted esté conectado. Si está conectado desde una computadora, tendrá que ir a la opción del icono de interpretación que aparece en la parte inferior de su pantalla. En forma de globo, con la palabra interpretación, usted tiene que dar clic ahí y seleccionar el idioma español. Si usted está conectado desde un teléfono inteligente, tiene que ir a la opción de más o tres puntitos que están en la parte inferior izquierda, dar clic ahí, seleccionar español y ya puede escuchar esta reunión en su idioma. Gracias.
Thank you, Miguel. And now I'd like to offer our Mandarin language interpreter, Bao, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bao Cheng. I'm the Mandarin interpreter for tonight. 接下来我们在这个本次会议期间呢，会提供口译服务，也包括了我们这个普通话服务。接下来我们在待会儿开始之后呢，你在这个屏幕的下方，可以在一个空间里面可以点击这个圆球小圆球的这个标志，点击一下，你可以看到中文，点击中文，那就可以进入到里面去听这次会议的中文口译，好吗？谢谢大家 ，Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Can I now ask the language interpretation? There we go. So now everybody should see a button at the bottom of their screen and click the language for which you'd like to enter the room. Okay, I think we now can go forward to the next slide. Great. If you have a question or need technical support tonight, in the chat feature, you should be able to see, I'm opening my chat now, the very top option is tech support at MBTA. So if you have any questions about accessibility or need help with the Zoom functions, please feel free to use that chat. You will also see the second option in the chat function is says ask questions here. And if it's not a technical question about Zoom, but a question about the content of tonight's meeting, please feel free to put any questions or comments you want to make about the substance, in this case, fare-free buses on Route 23, 28, or 29. Feel free to drop those in there as the presentation's going, and we'll be sure to recognize them when we get to the end of the presentation. And now if we can go forward one more slide. Oh, one more, sorry. We have closed captions this evening available. You should be able to click the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. And you are able to drag and click those captions in order to see the presentation better or to change the size of those closed caption features. And I want to thank Denise, who's with us yet again, to help us with that accessibility feature. Okay, now I think I can introduce the people from the MBTA. Here we go. My name is Lindsay Heffernan, and I am the Assistant General Manager for Policy and Transit Planning, and I have two individuals who are joining me this evening to talk about the matter before you tonight, and I'll offer them to introduce themselves in turn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Povich, and I'm the Director of Fare Policy and Analytics at the MBTA. Thanks for joining.
And hi, everybody. My name is David Charella, and I am the Senior Manager of Fare Policy and Analysis at the MBTA. And I will be answering your questions tonight under the name Ask Questions Here, as Lindsay just mentioned.
Thank you, David. We've lost your name, but we're glad you're here for us. And at this point in time, the way that tonight's going to work, Stephen is going to share a presentation, probably about 15 minutes, about what it is that we're doing here to make buses, to have the buses go fare free for a period of the next 2 years. At the end of that, I'll come back and we'll be able to take both people's questions and their comments. We are accepting public comments on this topic, and we'll go through how people can share questions at that time. If you have a burning question and you need to leave or you want to make sure it's noted, please feel free to drop it into the chat, the Ask Questions Here chat, and it will certainly be preserved for the record. Stephen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. And we can go to the next slide, please. As Lindsay mentioned, I'm going to present on the Fare Free Bus program. Our agenda has 3 major items. First, we'll talk about the Fare Free Route 28 pilot, which took place last fall and winter, and the outcomes there. Then we'll talk about the Fare Free 23, 28, and 29 program, which is ongoing. And then, as Lindsay mentioned, we're happy to take questions and comments from the public. The Fare Free Route 28 pilot program was run in partnership with the City of Boston from August 2021 through February 2022. The Route 28 bus was run entirely fare free over that time period, and the MBTA was reimbursed for lost fare revenue by the city. This pilot program had 3 primary takeaways that have informed our thinking. First, in terms of ridership, the free fares encouraged increases in ridership of about 20% compared to other bus routes, some of which came from routes that, from cars, and some from trips that would not have happened in lieu of the free fares. In terms of service, the Route 28 absorbed this increase in ridership with minimal negative impacts on travel time or reliability. Specifically, we've looked at dwell time per passenger compared to other routes and noted that dwell time per passenger was down meaningfully, even in the context of increased ridership. And finally, in terms of economic impact, the pilot cost about $500,000 for the City of Boston. All the riders on the Route 28 experienced the operational benefits, the decreased dwell time, et cetera, that I mentioned. Few saw direct economic benefit. Only about a third saved money due to their transfer and pass purchasing behavior. And only about 20% saved more than $25 a month. We can go to the next slide, please. Now, I'll explain more about the Fare Free Route 23, 28, and 29 program that's built off of the pilot that I just went through. Next slide, please. In terms of this program, we will be running routes 23, 28, and 29, as well as the ride paratransit trips that start and end within 3/4 of a mile of these routes for free for 2 years. This program began on March 1st, 2022, so a couple months ago, and runs through the end of February 2024. All the costs of the program will be paid for by the City of Boston at an estimated total cost of about $8 million. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, this program is running on 3 routes and also the relevant paratransit service. The 23 has about 9,000 riders per weekday, the 28 about 11,000, and the 29 about 1,500. This service area also provides about 200 paratransit trips per weekday. As you can see, these run in the corridor between Ashmont, Mattapan, and Ruggles primarily. And on the right side of the screen, you can see that these run through neighborhoods that are compared to the rest of the MBTA service area, higher minority percentage, and higher low income percentage. We can go to the next slide, please. As with the Route 28 pilot, this program is in partnership with the City of Boston. The city is reimbursing the MBTA for the cost of the program, which, as I mentioned, is estimated, excuse me, is estimated to be about $8 million over 2 years, but this is dependent on ridership. There are 3 components primarily to the cost of the program. The first is the lost fares for folks boarding these 3 bus routes for free, as well as the potential for increased operating costs should the demand warrant increased service or something similar. Second, on the ride, our paratransit service, the city will be reimbursing for lost fares and again, increased operating costs in the case that more ride trips are taken due to induced demand from free costs. And finally, other costs include administrative costs at the MBTA and our partners, costs of performing a third-party equity analysis, which is a requirement from the federal government, and other sort of miscellaneous costs associated with the program. We also continue to work with the city to study the impacts of free fares through semi-annual surveys and a number of other data sources that are collected in these areas and around the city and service area. We can go to the next slide, please. That concludes our brief presentation on the Route 23, 28, and 29 program, as well as I mentioned, the Route 28 pilot that ran last fall and winter. I'll pass the mic back to Lindsay, but we are happy to answer your questions and take your comments at this time.
Thanks, Stephen. If you don't mind going forward one more slide. I'd like to just take a moment to explain how you can share a public comment or ask us a question this evening. To do so, you must virtually raise your hand. To do this on a computer, you are either going to press the Alt and Y key or click the raised hand button under the Participants tab at the bottom center of your screen. On a mobile device, you're going to tap the raised hand button at the bottom center of your screen. And on a phone, you're going to dial *9. Once you raise your hand, you'll be added to the queue with others who have raised their hands, and I will call on folks on a first come, first served basis. When it's your turn to speak, I will say your name or the last 4 digits of your phone number, and we'll let you know that I am unmuting you. If you are on a computer or mobile device, a box will pop up in the center of your screen. You will need to confirm that you'd like to be unmuted before you begin speaking. If you're on the phone, an automated recording will let you know that you are unmuted, and you may speak as soon as that recording finishes. Once you're unmuted, everyone in the meeting can hear you. Before you make your comment, please state your name and any organizational affiliation that you may have. Kindly limit your comments to no more than 2 minutes. And we ask you to make only 1 comment at a time so we can ensure everyone gets a chance to speak. We don't have many people here this evening, so I'm not really worried about our time pressure, but as soon as you are done speaking, you will be muted again. And if you have a longer statement of anything of that sort to read, I would just remind you of the many interpreters who are with us this evening and ask you to speak slowly. I would also say, I want to just remind you, you can send a comment to the chat and I will go through and read those out loud, but they also are part of our meeting record, which will be gathering all this information to share with our board before they make a final decision on our fares. So at this moment in time, I'd welcome anybody who would like to make a comment to raise their hand if they have a comment. Give me 1 moment so I can get my right screen up. And oh, hello there. I'm unmuting the last name Backstrom. Glad you're with us this evening.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, as some people know, I'm incredibly interested in, you know, fair transformation and fair equity. I think that it would be really important for. I still think it's really important for the MBTA to honor what they had talked about and had voted, I believe, when it was still considered the Fiscal Management Control Board, because they wanted to establish a low income or discount fare for means tested discount fare for low income people. And I think that would still be really good. And yet I also, you know, don't think it's too far out of the realm of reason to you know, to be asking for creative financing for completely free MBTA. You know, like the various places in Brazil and in Scandinavia, and you know, a few of our adversarial cities with that where we have adversarial relationships also, but you know, some decent places have fare free public transit, and so and I've been able to take advantage of the 28, the riding on the 28 and the 23, I think, and I just wanted to state that it was remarkably it makes boarding and disembarking much faster. Oh my gosh, so much faster. And it also makes it feels like a really big welcome. It actually feels like a really big welcome into into the buses and stuff. And then the other thing is that I just wanted to find out a quick question about the ride. Is that will the ride be will it be free if they are picked up or dropped off, or is it picked up and dropped off? Do they have to be to do both? Their beginning and their destination have to be within that zone of the free bus system, or are they sort of or is that sort of can be just the one? Anyway, all
Sure.
those things, and thank you for having this meeting.
Of course. Thank you, Ms. Backstrom. I'll say a couple of things, and then Stephen, I'll maybe turn it over to you on the ride question for clarification. But I'm of course very glad you felt welcomed onto our buses. We would like all of our riders to feel that way. I'm glad you had a positive experience. And for those who are watching, the ease with which you found both boarding and disembarking, and the speed with which that happened is what we at the T call dwell time. How long do we spend at each stop? So that's what Stephen was mentioning. We definitely know this. Not collecting fares does make that system easier for people. I will certainly note for the record, Ms. Backstrom, your desire to see a low income fare as another way to address fare equity. And as you know, our board has asked some questions about it. I think you follow closely, and I've seen plenty of news articles today as well. So certainly an important topic. Stephen, can I welcome you to share a little bit more about how the ride is determined, which ride trips sort of count to be fare free for those ride participants?
Sure. So ride trips are made free in the area within 3/4 of a mile of any of these routes. But as you said, the start and end needs to be within 3/4 of a mile of any of the routes. So you could start within 3/4 of a mile of one of the routes and end within 3/4 of a mile of another one, that would be free. But if you started within 3/4 of a mile and ended somewhere, 5 miles away, that would not be free under this program.
And just so folks know, part of that is a tie-in to our requirements. Ride fares are tied to bus fares, and so we have to give equivalent service or cost to our ride riders or paratransit riders. At this point in time, I hope we answered your questions. I'd welcome anybody else who would like to make a comment or ask a question to raise their hand. Great, and oops, here we go. Last name Regnanathan. I'm sorry if I didn't do that justice. There you go.
All good, all good. So hello, my name is Nithya. I am an intern with the Livable Streets Alliance organization, and I'm also an avid user of public transit in the greater Boston and Cambridge areas. So I'm really excited about the work that you all are doing, and I'm very happy that this pilot on the 23, 28, and 29 lines are being run. I did have a couple of questions if you all would be able to answer. First off, about this pilot program, in the future and down the line, do you see or do you have a vision for the MBTA kind of expanding the fare-free program across all bus lines or into other cities or that the MBTA covers, such as Cambridge? And if you have any information so far on how this 3-line pilot is going. I know you mentioned that you do semi-annual analysis on this impact, so I would love to hear anything about how that has been going. Additionally, in terms of future funding for these programs, aside from looking to get funding from cities, do you have any idea of how to get funding from the FTA or seeking any grants through the new infrastructure bill? So thank you so much, and
Sure.
I'm glad that you're holding this meeting.
And thank you for being with us. I'm just jotting some notes here. I'll maybe make a couple of preliminary comments, and then Stephen, I know you've thought about other communities and expansions of that program, and also don't know if you have any ridership numbers handy, but I'll give you a moment to search for them. So this program, as we noted, is operating with the City of Boston and on routes that operate solely within the City of Boston. You may be well aware, but in case others are listening, we operate buses in 55 communities, and so it is a big network and covering many municipalities. Other communities have expressed differing degrees of interest in the program. Certainly Cambridge, many people know their mayor has pulled together a task force to look at this, and we are engaging in some conversations, but it is complicated. The future funding question, right now, the MBTA operates sort of with the money we have in front of us. The City of Boston has been willing to not only express their interest, but get an appropriation from the City Council, which gives us a sense of stability in that funding stream. The infrastructure bill, some of the challenges you might be aware of. They like to fund stuff, build some things and fix some rail ties, and this money is really all operating dollars for the T. And so I don't see that as a path forward for us at this point in time. That doesn't mean there couldn't be other funding options. But Stephen, I welcome you to make some comments if you would like about any future expansions or other municipal ideas.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a tremendous amount to add on the funding sources. As Lindsay mentioned, we are open to speaking with other municipalities on this topic. We are probably, based on some of the results we've seen, interested in piloting things like low-income fares with third-party sources should they arise, but are open to conversations with all of our municipal partners. In terms of the surveying and results question you asked, the first surveying took place at the end of May and early June, and I'm not have not seen final results on that yet, so too early on the survey side, but a good question. And on the other results that we evaluated on the 28th, in terms of the dwell time, ridership, et cetera, again, we look at ridership over on a monthly basis. The more detailed statistics we have not yet analyzed. Ridership has increased on these routes since they became free. I would note also that our bus system has seen a particularly strong increase in ridership in the first half of this year, with lower ridership during the Omicron surge. So some of this is excitement about the fare-free routes, certainly, and some of it is that. So all to say, we haven't taken a deep dive into those numbers yet, but appreciate the question.
I would also just note one of the challenges certainly the MBTA has is a looming operational deficit, and right now fiscal 24. And so certainly changes to fares and fare structures, we have to have an end game to fund those as an organization. Thank you so much for your comment and for being with us tonight, and for interning at one of our partner organizations. At this point in time, I would welcome if anybody else has a comment or question for us. And I'm just double checking that we haven't had anything put into the chat for any. David, if there's anything in the chat that you're seeing, okay, nope, nothing in the chat. I don't currently see any other hands raised. We were initially thinking this meeting would go till 7. I'm not sure we're going to be able to make it that long. But I'm happy to pause for a minute and see if anybody has a question or a comment for us. Stephen, can you remind the group how long we're accepting public comments through?
Certainly, we're accepting public comments to our public engagement email and a phone number, which is on mbta.com through the end of June 30th. And then we will be taking public comments and incorporating it into our presentation to the board, which will be taking place in the July board meetings.
Great. I'm not seeing any other comments or questions at this point in time. If we can go forward to the next slide. Oh, I thought we had the public engagement email on there. Maybe someone could drop that into the chat just in case somebody does have an email, a question there or comment they'd want to make via email. As was noted, we'll be accepting public comments until June 30th. And would welcome any comments on this topic or any topic, frankly, at that email address. I should just pause and ask to our interpreters if there's anybody in the language interpretation rooms that has any questions or comments. Miguel, maybe you could go first. Oh, we can't hear you, Miguel. Can you switch rooms? Or do I? No questions? Okay, I see you're shaking your head. No questions there. And thank you. And Bao, any questions in your room? Yeah, no questions. Okay, thank you, Bao. Well, then at this point, I'm going to offer some time back to those who have joined us in attendance. I want to thank you for spending the time with us this evening. Please do feel free to send any questions or comments that you have to public engagement at mbta.com. Public engagement is all one word. And we'll accept those comments for, I think another week is June 30th. And we'll more to come as we bring this matter back to our board for a final decision in July. Thank you all very much for joining us. I hope you have a lovely evening. Good night.